Hello, and thanks for joining me today to not just survive this school year, but to thrive in the ELA classroom. I'm Leslie Zaroya, Project Director for Reading Language Arts at Los Angeles County Office of Education. Let's face it, it's been a tough time in the past 18 months or so. Everyone is exhausted. But let's look at what we do know right now. We know it's not over. Even though we have gone back to classrooms, the pandemic is still going on, and kids, teachers, and families are still dealing with the effects. Secondly, this is not normal business as usual school. Teachers have been out sick, kids are absent, subs are in short supply, and it can be chaotic. But we still want kids to learn. We want to see progress this year, despite the many challenges. And I would argue, let's not just survive it and get through the year. Survival is inherently draining. Let's thrive instead. Let's figure out a way to make it through and come through the other side alive and well. I came across this the other day and it struck me. Every generation has a monumental event that changed how life looked for them, said Melanie Nicholson, an economics teacher at Frisco High School. The pandemic brought a number of challenges and less than ideal circumstances for students, teachers, and families. But amid the trials were new ways for teachers to connect learning to real life and help students develop critical social and emotional skills. This is really true. There were some bright spots. Maybe we can capitalize on those and use it to carry us through. So how can I thrive when I'm already drained and overwhelmed, you might ask? Well, let's consider a few buckets here, some areas that we can concentrate on in our ELA classrooms. We'll look at social emotional learning, yours and theirs, some basics around Common Core state standards, the notion of focusing on rigor and relevance, and then finally how metacognition can help everyone feel okay and become independent learners. One of the major lessons of online learning was the fact that social emotional needs rise to the top in times of crisis, and really should be at the top all of the time. It's still true that when you don't care for yourself, you can't care for others. I know, teachers are sick of everyone telling them to take care of yourself. I get it. When you're overly stressed, that is often the last thing you want to hear. It's not like you can drop everything and run to the spa, right? What I'm referring to is more about setting yourself up to be okay each day and not feel like a raving lunatic. One of the best ways to care for yourself is to get organized. It feels really good to have order and structure. We feel in control. So take some time and really nail your instructional routines in place. Think about the structure of your day or class periods. What routines can you implement both for yourself and your students? Maybe beginning with a reading or audio or video is a way to settle into the class, or having a journal prompt ready to go or a quick meditation. Predictable routines make everyone feel secure. Also, consider taking a moment in each class period or when you switch subjects to have everyone close their eyes and take 3 deep breaths. This is calming for you and the students. It can be a recalibration. Next, do something you love outside of school. Whatever it is, do something that makes you laugh or makes you happy. This can go a long way. Attending to others' needs all the time is draining. Do one thing each day that is just for you, even for just 2 minutes. Lastly, give yourself a breath. Not a break, although that's good too, but literally a deep breath. When I'm stressed, just the act of one long deep breath helps. Do this. Just do it. Trust me. Now for students, the same goes for them. Help them know how to organize their work and their learning in your room. A lot of kids struggle with this, and it can be really anxiety producing. Allow time for a moment for students too. Direct them to take some deep breaths. It works. Also, provide outlets for students to get their frustrations and challenges out. Journals, poetry, partner talks, small group time, Padlets. Just some way to express it, even if no one hears or reads it. It's cathartic and the magic of language and literacy. Getting to dump it all out there. Lastly, and then we'll move on, be the model in the room for acknowledging and dealing with emotions. Show how to handle frustration, joy, anger, disappointment. Let them see in you what they need for themselves. This may be the only place they get that role modeling. Make it count. Okay, enough touchy-feely. Let's talk about some Common Core state standards basics. When it comes to literacy development, after the year we've all had, Well, let's just say we need to pare down to the basics and cut the fluff. What I mean by this is to be strategic in what we address. The first thing is to give some sort of assessment that can tell you where students' gaps are. For elementary, I would use something like the BPST to identify early reading issues, along with a fluency assessment. In secondary, I'd give either the San Diego Quick or a curriculum-based measure, along with a fluency assessment if your school does not have a standardized assessment like MAPS or the like. It's really hard to dive into teaching without some kind of information like this. It's difficult to prioritize the standards with no clear data. If you have no assessment, Google and download the San Diego Quick. It's free and easy to administer. Then download free fluency passages from Achieve the Core. They have free sets of fluency assessments by grade level. Google it, it's easy to find. Once you have some data, group students with like needs for some small group work. I know secondary ELA teachers freak out about this, but we have to stop being afraid to do some small group work. Doing 100% whole group can never get at the gaps that older kids may have. Small groups can be for just 5 minutes and be a great way to do a quick check-in with students who are struggling with a concept or skill. Next, be super clear on your lesson objectives, both in your own mind and out loud to students. What is it that you really want students to have learned? How will you know? Being really clear about this not only helps you be strategic in planning, especially when it comes to scaffolds for English learners and struggling kids, but it also helps alleviate the anxiety kids feel when they don't have a clear target. My first question when I walk into any classroom is always directed at a student. What are you supposed to learn right now? How are you going to do that? If I had a nickel for how many times the response was, I have no idea, I'd be a millionaire. This is the one thing we can easily do. Explicitly state the goal and how we'll get there. I know it seems like a no-brainer, but sometimes we forget to do the obvious things, and it really matters. Finally, if you can provide some options for how students learn, meaning the mode, like article, video, etc., and the manner, whole group in pairs independently, it can go a long way to holding on to students' attention and engagement. Everyone likes choices. If I can choose for myself how I learn, I tend to be more invested. And in times like these, where it is more stressful than normal, this can be a big deal. One of the best things about being an ELA teacher is that we really can tackle any idea, concept, issue, or concern within the realm of reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So in times like these, where there are crises on multiple fronts, social, political, environmental, etc., the ELA classroom can be a place to process and sort through it. Giving space for what is happening in the world can be a great way of making it seem less scary and unmanageable. Plus, it inherently creates a sense of rigor and relevance. We're not ignoring what is happening around us, but rather looking at it in a safe space and figuring out how we feel about it and what it means. This does not mean throwing all rigorous academia out the window. In fact, just the opposite. Being what Zaretta Hammond calls a warm demander, a teacher that holds high expectations and offers rigorous tasks, but also sees where scaffolds need to be placed, can create the sense of push and care that students need to be engaged and take ownership over their learning. My favorite teacher in high school was not so because she was warm and fuzzy, for she was not at all, but she showed her care by holding us all to extremely high expectation. She demanded much from us, but we delivered because we knew she cared for us and she helped us figure out how to meet the rigor of the moment. The other thing to think about is the kinds of texts we are offering to students. In times of crisis and stress, choosing texts that can either help understand current issues or challenge us to think differently about them can really be useful. We often hear about choosing texts that offer windows and mirrors for students, and this is of course very important. But choosing texts that also help students deal with current issues can help them not just process learning, but also figure out how to deal with current realities. This in turn creates a sense of shared community, of being in it together, and offers tools for handling difficult situations. Finally, one other thing to think about is the idea of projects in times like these. Maybe not huge, multifaceted, complex projects that could feel too overwhelming to everyone, including you, but maybe small service projects that relate to what you're learning and reading about. letter writing to seniors or service personnel, organizing food drives or recycling campaigns, anything that allows students to use their reading, writing, listening, speaking skills to take action. It can be very steadying to solve a problem in times of stress. It gives us a sense of control in chaos. Think about how your students might take action on something. It's another way to bring rigor and relevance together. The last bucket here concerns metacognition, or thinking about one's own thinking. Consider two students that you now have in class, one who's very capable and independent, and one who's a struggling student. Chances are the dependent learner has little awareness of how he or she best learns and tends to avoid work, maybe sits there waiting for help, can't work diligently on their own, and has little confidence in their abilities. Does this sound familiar? We've all had those students. Now think of your capable learner. Starts work right away, is finished early, appears to have little anxiety about the work, and just gets it done. Fostering independent learners who are capable and self-sufficient requires that students know how they best learn and what to do when they are stuck and have obstacles. Incorporating metacognitive tasks can be an effective way of training dependent learners to become more self-assured. Giving tasks like you see here, pre-work, making them tell, how will I begin? What might help me get started? These questions are not ones that they are used to considering. Students who struggle will often assume they can't do it and avoid or get in trouble. Forcing them to think of a plan teaches them to not freak out, to stop, take a moment, and think of each step. Similarly, these types of prompts can be given during work and post-work. These are powerful methods of retraining a dependent learner and showing them they can actually work through hard things. It translates into other life skills as well, which is an added bonus. This kind of work is crucial in an ELA classroom for building strong and capable readers and writers, as well as helping teachers understand how best to serve them. So just to recap, thinking about these 4 areas can help us navigate these stressful times and even thrive in our ELA classrooms. Attending to our social emotional needs, being clear on our Common Core state standards and the goals for each lesson, keeping that rigor and relevance in the forefront of our work, and helping students process their own learning methods and processes can all go a long way towards fostering independent learners. All of these things can also create a great sense of community, belonging, and understanding, which in stressful times is healing and restorative. Let's not just get through another school year. Let's actually thrive and come out the other side better for the shared experience. Thanks so much for listening and for all that you do every day for our students. Teaching is the most difficult and most rewarding work there is, as you well know. Thank you for working to create classrooms where students feel seen, heard, and understood. Please let us know if there's anything we can do to support you, and take care out there.